All right, class, this is the second video, which I've been having some problems with. What I need you to open up for this one is the adjusting and closing entry example problem. I want you to follow along. I did the part one example for the adjusting entry lecture, which is already up. And this is going to be the lecture for the closing entry. Again, I'm just breaking them up because the smaller the videos, the easier they are. And it also will help you take a minute or two in between videos to be able to relax a little bit and keep going. So we're going to go to question number 2 on the example problems that I gave you. We're going to be doing the closing entries on this one. And if you can kind of open up 2 windows, have your slides open also, which would be a good, helpful thing to follow, having your slides open for this, so that this way you can go ahead and see what we're actually follow along with the steps and follow along with what we're doing. So with that being said, if you take a look at the slides, there was 4 steps when it came to preparing the closing entries, which they were down towards the bottom of the slides that we have. And that's on slide 35. So it says, first thing to do, step 1 would be to go ahead and close out our revenue accounts. Now, if you take a look at the little chart in the orange box on this example problems, you'll see that we had revenues on the credit side, which again, revenues have a normal credit balance of $145,000. So to go ahead and zero that account out, if we have a credit balance, we're going to have to do a debit. So as you see in example entry 1A, I am debiting revenues for the $145,000. And according to our slides, it said to close it out to a new account, which is called the income summary account. Income summary, you got to make sure that you do not mix up again with the income statement. Income summary is an account. Income statement is a financial statement. The other thing about the income summary account is that it's going to be closed at the end of this 4-step process also. Okay, so it's only used in the closing entries during the closing entries. So we have a debit to revenues and we have a credit to income summary. That's the first journal entry. It's very easy. The second step, according to our slides, says to close out your expense accounts. Now, keep in mind, in the Alsdray world, expenses have a normal debit balance. So to get rid of a debit balance, we're going to have to credit that. Okay, and as you can see from the example here, we have 1, 2, 3 different types of expenses. Now, the biggest question that I get when it comes to closing entries about expenses is, can I just add them all up together and credit expenses? No, you must credit each individual account. Okay, debit or crediting each individual account will allow that account to be completely zeroed out. Sorry for the interruption. Should stop ringing here in a second. All right, so you have to go ahead and you have to do that for each individual account, which, hang on one second, I am going to disconnect that phone line for a minute. Okay, so when we're doing these, we have to go ahead and we're going to have to credit all the expense accounts individually. And once you go ahead and you set up your journal entry, you know you're going to debit income summary and you're going to credit your expense accounts. So as you see, if you add up all your expense accounts here, 45 and 12 is 57 plus the other 5 gives us our 62. So we have the debit to income summary for 62. And then we have the 3 credits. $45,000 for rent, $12,000 for utilities, and $5,000 for telephone. Okay, so that is our journal entry for the closing out the expense accounts to income summary. Step 3 is to close out your income summary account. Now, this is where a little scrap sheet of paper and a pen works out really well. So set up a T account for income summary. And you can see from your journal entries that you have a $145,000 credit to income summary from your first entry. Then you have a $62,000 credit or debit to income summary for your second entry. So if you go ahead and subtract those two amounts, okay, if you go ahead and do a subtract on your calculator, just subtract the amounts, the difference that you would come up to, and I'm just double checking my math here, is going to be $83,000. So what side, according to your T account, do you need $83,000 to go ahead and make this balance out? And you can see that you need a debit of $83,000 to income summary, and you close income summary out to your retained earnings. So no matter what, figure out the amount that you need for income summary first. And in this case, figure out that you need a debit, and then you figured out the amount of 83. So you're going to debit income summary for 83, and you're going to credit retained earnings. Now, some way, shape, or form here, my numbering is all wrong and it's out of whack here. Somehow I put the dividends entry in front of that. So it doesn't really matter what order you do these last two in. You could do the closing of the income summary first, or you could do the dividends. It doesn't really matter because they're all being the same things happening no matter what. So once you do, if you take a look at entry 4A, which I don't know why it's listed as 4A, debit to income summary for 83 and a credit to retained earnings for 83. That entry there closes out your income summary account. So that account is now closed. The only account left that you have to work with is our dividends account. And that would be the last step in the closing entries. So if you take a look at your chart, it said dividends has a debit balance, which according to Alsdray is correct, because dividends have a debit balance of 35. So to get rid of a debit balance, you're going to have to credit. So as you can see, according to our slides, we don't do the income summary account for this one. We close our dividends right into retained earnings. So if we have to credit dividends for 35, that means we need a debit of 35 to make sure our journal entry balances again, and that debit is going to be the retained earnings. So these four entries that you see on your page there are the four closing entries that you need to be able to prepare. Now again, they're not difficult, and just whenever you're working on journal entries, piece them together. Write the information that you know down and work your way into the information you don't know. That's the key here. And that's going to be the key when you get into financial or into managerial and so on and so forth. So make sure that you put down the information that you know. At least you'll get some partial credit. If we're doing a test on this stuff, you'll get partial credit knowing, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, but I don't know this. At least you know some things. So the key there is just go ahead and work your way into these answers. So I'm going to go ahead and post this video for you, and I am going to open up chapter 4 because we're going to start chapter 4 today also. There's going to be a lot of work for you between now and Friday. So pay attention, and I will send you guys out an email informing you what's happening.